Norris slams the FIA. The critics towards the FIA still do not stop several days after the Australian Grand Prix, which saw massive chaos ensuing, with as many as 8 cars not finishing the race. Lando Norris was among the many drivers and team officials firing shots towards the FIA themselves. However, the young British driver now turned his focus towards another target. What he said was shocking in all honesty, but nevertheless expected, because according to him, the FIA is not the only one to blame in this situation. So who else did Norris criticize, and what exactly did he say? More on that later in the video.
The door was wide open. Lando decided to walk through it.
The comedic chaos which was the Australian Grand Prix was a result of poor FIA management, which is starting to take a toll on the fun of the sport. FIA's incompetence in handling these situations does nothing good. On the contrary, it only frustrates the fans and the teams on the grid. Almost everyone involved in the race on Sunday at Albert Park in Melbourne had something to say about the multiple restarts and red flags. From Russell saying that they're working with the FIA to change things, but it is turning out to be a bit of a challenge, to Sainz absolutely lashing out at the stewards for the, in his opinion, ridiculous 5-second penalty. Even Verstappen went out and said he didn't understand why there was a red flag towards the end.
Penalty, you're going to need a calculator and binoculars and a pair of eyes.
Blaming FIA for the mess they created themselves, while the only thing necessary was a normal rolling start behind a safety car. Questions were also raised as to whether the stoppages, which closed the field up and are followed by dramatic standing starts, were being employed merely to improve the spectacle, with 6 drivers involved in incidents after the second restart. Lando Norris didn't have time to celebrate the team's best finish this season, as he too had a few words to say towards the governing body of Formula One. His quotes were pointed towards the entertainment value of the sport, blaming the FIA that they only do that so that the viewers at home will have fun, and that they have absolutely no idea how the drivers would feel about it. Nothing against them, but the people who make decisions don't know what's going on inside the car, the young British driver said. The whole point of red flagging, it feels like it was just to put on a show, because to fireworks, abrupt swerving and other factors, I easily could have collided with Nico Hülkenberg at the finish line. Someone does something stupid at turn 1, locks up and your race is over because the FIA just wants to make the show more exciting. It's safe to say that rarely who was pleased or even had a neutral view on this whole situation. But Norris went ahead and fired shots towards another part of the Formula One circus. We'll get to that in a second. There were people who had no problem with the FIA's decisions and behavior on the race. One example was Christian Horner, Red Bull's team principal, who said that the final red flag was the right thing to do, even though it might have put Verstappen's victory in jeopardy. His excuse was that they always learn something new from these situations. Toto Wolff also remained neutral in his points, alluding to the fact that it was okay putting several red flags, but as long as they remain consistent and everything is clear at all times. But is FIA to blame for completely everything? Well, Lando Norris called out the Pirelli tyres for their role in the incidents, saying that he can't describe how bad the grip is. We have a soft tyre on that's 65 degrees centigrade, and I can't describe how little grip there is on track. It's not a bad temperature, but the tyre doesn't work, and on this surface with this tyre temperature, I can't describe how bad the grip is. That's why you see everyone going straight on in turn 1 and locking up. It provides literally no grip, so you have to brake so early, which causes chaos and causes incidents. In 2022, F1 cars' wheel diameters grew from 13 to 18 inches, with the temperature of tyre blankets reduced to 70 degrees Celsius, down from 100 degrees on the front tyres and 80 on the rears. Norris said the chaos at Melbourne's second restart stemmed from the lack of grip offered by the sport's current specification of tyres. He then implied that the current 23-inch Pirellis on 18-inch wheel rims did not meet F1 standards by calling the rubber terrible. If the tyres felt like they gave us some grip, I think you'd be able to see a good race without chaos and some clumsiness and things like that. It's just difficult. I wouldn't say it's clumsy from everyone. It's just you're racing and there's no grip, as simple as that. We need a tyre that gives us some more grip, and actually a tyre that feels like it should be on a Formula One car at the top of motorsport. And at the moment, on a day like today, it feels pretty terrible.
I was working well. We were on good tyres. I saved the tyres.
The race was hopefully McLaren's way out of the tunnel this season. Aerodynamic efficiency is the ratio of downforce to drag. While teams like Red Bull appear to get the balance perfect, McLaren has had some early 2023 difficulties in this department. The MCL60 lacks the top speed of its direct competitors, and this is what led to the dismissal of ex-technical chief James Key, but Lando Norris persevered in Melbourne, eventually cracking the top 10. Norris put up a valiant fight against Perez and his much faster car, the RB19, but the winner of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix eventually got by. After successfully executing a cutback at turn 11, the British driver lined up 6th for the procession to the finish thanks to a beautiful move on Hülkenberg, which involved getting alongside him and taking the inside line for a lesser spotted move at the curve that immediately followed. Teammate Oscar Piastri also overcame the pressure of his first home F1 race to recover from 16th on the grid, passing Yuki Tsunoda to break free of the skirmishes in the lower middle. This resulted in the Aussie scoring his first points of the season at home, joining fellow compatriots Mark Webber and Daniel Ricciardo in this achievement. After a rough start to the year, McLaren is finally starting to rack up some points and is making progress towards its goal of being competitive in 2023. So, can we actually understand FIA making these decisions? Magnussen's right rear wheel was shattered when he hit the exit curb of turn 2, but he managed to make it to turn 3 before pulling off the circuit. There was broken glass all over the track, and the marshals had a car to move, so it seemed certain that the race would end with the safety car out. After all, that's how things fizzled out in last year's race in Monza, despite some complaints about how the race was handled. Perhaps the resulting uproar persuaded FIA race director Niels Wittich to opt for the red flag instead, ensuring that the remaining 16 drivers would be able to race to the finish. Unfortunately, things didn't turn out as planned. Chaos instead reigned supreme. Another red flag brought a competitive stop to the race, as Carlos Sainz collided with Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly crashed into the wall, along with his Alpine teammate Esteban Ocon. With 1 lap to go, the situation became even more murky, as it was unclear whether the FIA would maintain the current order or revert to the original starting order minus the drivers who were forced to withdraw. It went with the latter, drawing an official appeal from Haas as Nico Hülkenberg advanced to 4th place, but the stewards waved it away. There have been 3 examples of late race crashes in recent years, each of which has been handled differently. In Abu Dhabi 2021, the safety car was called off early to provoke a last-gasp title battle. In Monza last year, the race ended behind the safety car. And now in Australia, a red flag has conferred a standing start. As a result, the FIA must establish the canonical procedure. The question of whether or not Formula One is primarily a sport or entertainment is an existential one, but there must be consistency. What are your thoughts? Should the FIA change the rules and regulations and completely change their approach to situations like this, which are almost certain to happen, judging by how tight the title race may be this season between Perez and Verstappen, or even a third party? Let us know in the comments below.